All right, in this video, we're going to take a look at some of the tips and tricks that I've learned from the comments on some of my videos. So starting off, we're looking at the quick guide to multicolor printing. And I didn't know this before making the video, but when you import the files, they're automatically going to be set to your #1 slot in the AMS. But if you want to, you can just click on the model you want to change the color of, and then you hit the number key on your keyboard and it'll set it to that number in the AMS. And so that's pretty handy, saves you a bunch of time. You're not coming in here and painting anything or using the fill color. You can just change it on the fly to the base color that you want. So that's a quick and easy one. Number 2 is from the seam video. And when it comes down to seam painting, I'm going to just slice this plate, which it already is. We go to preview, and you can see that seam is all the way down this corner here in the aligned settings. And I want it to come over onto this side. And in my video, I was painting the seam all the way down the line. So I'll show you what that looks like. I was trying to keep this all aligned and I was shaking all over the place and I wasn't quite keeping that line straight. And so I ended up with a less than ideal seam that you can see here with these couple bulges coming out of there. What we can do instead with the align tool is all you have to do is pick one corner of that line and the slicing software will do the rest. If I slice that, now it's all on the line. I didn't have to paint it all the way down, and that's pretty handy for saving some time here in the align tool. So that's tip number 2. And tip number 3 comes from one of my most viewed videos about a matte and glossy finish. And so basically we had 2 parts on the build plate, one that's very thin. So this has very thin walls. Each layer is going to finish very quickly. And then we had another piece on the build plate, which meant that there were slightly slower layers for the first half of the print, and then it got really quick afterwards. And so basically what we saw when we sliced this plate is that we were going to get a different finish on this left part because it was going to be going slower for the top layers than on the bottom layers, because it was going to wait for the minimum layer time to be fulfilled before actually going and continuing. So if we look at the speed, we can see that clear distinction between the first half with the secondary part and then the second half. And that means that this lower part is actually moving a lot faster, and then it slows down for that second half. And we can see that in the flow also. Very similar heat map on the flow versus the speed. And so basically what this is a symptom of is the minimum layer time. And so we can go back into our prepare, and we're using the black on number 2 here. And so we'll edit the filament and we'll go into cooling. And then here's your minimum layer time. And so right now it's set to 6 seconds, which is pretty generous. It's very high. We've set that to 0, which you probably want to give it a couple seconds, but we're going to set it to 0 for demonstration's sake. And you'll slice the plate. And now you can see everything's uniform. Like, it's allowing it to go as fast as it wants to without waiting between those layers. And so in this case, you'll end up with fully matte instead of fully glossy. So my fix for this in the previous video was to change your speed of your outer walls. So you'd come in here and you change your outer walls and maybe set that to half, set it to 100. But in this case, if you change the minimum layer time, you don't have to do that. And so you maintain your speed and you're going to get a matte finish instead of a glossy finish. So if you go slower, you're putting more heat into the filament, and that way it's going to be glossy. If you're going faster, you're putting less heat into the filament and it's going to be matte. So those are the 3 tips that I've learned from the comments. And just one last note on here is that this also shows up in a singular part. Like, say these 2 were one part, you would see the exact same effect. So this isn't specifically for multi parts on the build plates. This can happen in a singular part with different geometries across the layers. So the first half of this part has more surface area, so it's going to be faster, and then it's going to slow down when it gets to the thinner portion, which is a little bit counterintuitive, but that's the way that it's programmed to work and slice. those are the 3 tips that I've learned from the comments on some of my videos. I hope that was helpful, and I'll see you in the next one.